Would I buy this Go Fast camper again after 2 years of consistent use? How has the GFC been holding up over the last 2 years? What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode. Today we are doing a 2/2 year review of the Go Fast Camper V2. All the pros, cons, and whether or not I would buy this camper again. So stay tuned to the end. I'm getting ready for a overnight trip tonight. I'm getting the camper all packed up and ready to go. So I figured while I have everything opened up, I would do this quick review with you guys. I did a 1-year review of the camper last year. I will leave a link to that down below, but a lot of the pros and cons off of that 1-year review list is still pretty accurate. I will be bringing up a few new things that have happened over the last year since my 1-year review. We're at least camping in this thing every week, if not every other week, generally, as you guys have been following along on my videos. So let's go ahead and dive in. Starting with the truck tent itself. I love how easy it is to set up, to take down. I love that you can store the majority of your bedding within the truck. I'm throwing the double sleeping bag back into the tent. That's why I have everything open right now and I'm letting things air out. So I'm definitely still happy with the wedge tent itself. Sometimes I do wish that all 4 corners do come up. That way there's just a little bit more room in the tent space itself. But for how easy it is to set up, 2 latches, it literally pops up. You just kind of push it up a little bit and it pops right up. Moving on to the Forma floors. My love-hate relationship with the Forma floors, as you guys already know. I definitely like it more whenever I am by myself. Camping solo, the Forma floors are great to have to maneuver around. You can utilize them however you'd like. I love sleeping in bunk mode, as I call it. So I'll set up the bed halfway on the tent. That way I can just jump in and out of bed easily, and then I can still hang out down below. I definitely still love the pass-through ability of the GFC as well, to be able to utilize your truck bed space to however you want to use it. If the weather's crappy, you can hang out inside. If you want to change, again, I am standing up fully. You can change in here. You got a ton of room. And so I still definitely love all of these aspects of the GFC, the pass-through ability, the ease of setup, and making the truck bed and the camper however you need it to be based on whatever you're gonna do. So if we're gonna be hanging out at the beach, I have enough room down below to store stuff in the truck bed to go on a beach day. We can open up all the flaps here. We can do a little siesta up on the 2nd floor with awesome views of everything going on outside. But my love-hate relationship with the Forma floors, I definitely like them more when I'm by myself, but when I do have Carly and the dog, it does get a little bit cramped in here to have to move floors around. There just is less space to manipulate the Forma floors to how we want to use them. The pass-through ability between the tent and the truck bed is still one of my favorite features of this truck camper. That's pretty much what makes this setup unique in comparison to our old setup, which is a rooftop tent. The Smitty built rooftop tents, just the ability to be able to stand and then just do whatever you want with the 5-foot truck bed that we have. So it's been great for that. The camper itself is still very, very solid. There has been no issues with any of the hardware. Everything that holds the camper to the truck bed itself, all of the extrusions, everything has been performing really, really well. So no complaints there. All the other pros I mentioned from my 1-year review video still stand. How easy it is to set up camp, lock gear in the back of the truck, and change the bed layout. Pick whatever you need it to be for whatever adventure you're having for the day. So these are all still great pros about this setup. So moving on to the cons, I will mention that the tent material seems to be sagging just a little bit. So if you guys can notice here, I'm not sure if the camera is going to be able to do this justice, but you can see from the bottom here, I'll try and get over here, but it's kind of like sagging outwards a little bit, and you'll notice how it kind of comes forward into the tent, right? It does kind of make it feel a little bit smaller in here, because look at how much room I can push that back. It just doesn't seem as taut as originally when we first bought it, so that's just something to be aware of. To help with the tent sag, I do plan on adding a grab handle to the top of the tent. That way, whenever you're putting this down, instead of grabbing it from the outside, keeping the tent material as pristine as possible, I just feel like as you start tugging on the sides right here, that it's just going to get worse. You know, as you continue using the tent, you keep tugging on the sides here to bring it down. see how much this is sagging right here? I'm trying to get good footage of this. The bug net here is just not as tight as it used to be, which I get for like wear and tear. This is just something that might happen, but I just wanted to let you guys know. With all of this sag, and you'll notice here, like it's the outside that's also moving. Because the windows do not like fully zip up, you get a lot of, whenever it's really, really windy, it just like hits the tent really hard. And that is something that we noticed on our last trip. Because the flaps don't fully enclose at the bottom, you'll hear just this type of noise going on. So that's definitely a con right here. Just the way that, you know, the tent flaps are and the tent material. You guys already know that the bug windows are also not correct. The bug net is on the outside versus the inside. So for me to open up my window, I have to undo my bug net area, open up this window like this, and then close it up afterwards. But you got the bug net open trying to open up your window. You can only imagine in Alaska, those mosquitoes, they will be in here by the time you're done trying to roll up your windows. So that's definitely still a con here with the bug net on the inside versus the outside. So you can't just easily open up your window without exposing yourself to a bunch of bugs. So that's one con that I have mentioned multiple times in the past as well. I did have one window seam failure in the tent. When I was pulling this window up and down, this whole seam right here failed. What GFC ended up sending me was a window repair kit. So if you guys look right here, you'll see a little buttons up from the outside. So that seam should stay put and it won't move anymore. And something I will mention, when I did reach out to Go Fast Campers about this issue, they ended up giving me 3 options. My first option was to take the tent off myself, so that I could send the tent material back to them and they would give me a brand new tent to reinstall myself. This process of taking this tent out of the frame here is not an easy thing to do. I don't have a garage big enough to open up the tent and work on it, and it was about 100 degrees outside, so that was not something I was gonna go do. Their other option was for me to drive over to one of their distributors. The closest one to me outside of their Montana distributor is, or their Montana HQ, is to go down to San Diego. I didn't have any time to go to San Diego, so I just wanted to get it fixed. So I ended up going with their option 3. They provided the seam repair kit to me for me to do it, which I did, and it was easy enough to do. It was essentially poking a hole through the tent material and then from the outside just, you know, essentially button up the top of that seam. I most likely will have to do that to all 4 of these windows back here because I do see them delaminating, unfortunately. So let me show you guys over here. This is a prime example of this, but so you'll see that. And yeah, so you can see that the seam material is definitely coming off. So I try to be very careful with these back windows here. That is definitely going to have to be repaired. This repair here has been pretty solid, so I'm pretty happy with that. You know, the window opens and closes properly, which is good, but I just have a feeling that I'm going to end up having to do that with both sides. This side's not too bad. This side is the one that's been having problems. So, and while we're in the tent, I'll just talk about a couple other things that I really don't like still. The fact that there is nowhere to hang stuff inside this tent. I ended up buying a bunch more carabiners so that I can hang a couple more things out here, stuff around here. But there's literally nothing to hang stuff with, which is unfortunate because our rooftop tent had a bunch of pouches and stuff inside of here. There's a bunch of people making aftermarket pouches that will hang, or you can also Velcro some stuff onto the roof to try and help with that. But the fact that this didn't come stock with any type of thing to hang stuff is very, very sad. Next thing on my list is that this thing was not the most rainproof. We recently camped out in some pretty hard rain in California a couple months ago, and we did see some rain intrusion in here. This tent is supposedly 5 seasons, by the way. We found a couple wet spots in the tent. So there's one right here in the front, and there's another one perfectly on the other side. So even though the flaps were closed, We have not camped in any hard rain since then, but that is something to be aware of, that happened. So I'm not sure. We did also see a little bit of drips and drops here on the corners of the truck bed as well. Luckily, since we do live out in the desert, we don't run into rain often, so this is not a huge concern for me. But if you guys are in like the PNW or in an area where you do get a lot of rain, that's something to consider. Do your own research though, because I have heard some GFC owners, there's like some kind of gutter system that you can install on the tent to try and, I don't know, brush water off that way. I'm not sure what to do with this side because, again, with all of the tent sag right here, as the rain was dripping down from here, maybe there is some type of like failure on this little corner. I don't know, but it happened, so I'm not sure. So staying on the rain topic, the one thing I really don't like is that there are no rain flies on the GFC. So in our rooftop tent, we automatically got like the rain fly poles and everything like that to help with like rain or sunshine. But with the GFC, there are aftermarket companies that you can buy these little rain flap kits that essentially come with the T-track block to hold in your poles to create a rain fly. Unfortunately though, this really is only good for sunshine, more like a sun shader versus a rain fly, because when you open this big window, like, you're pretty exposed. So if you're getting any sideways rain, it's definitely going to come inside, so it doesn't do the greatest job. With our rooftop tent, we had two pieces of material around the tent where there was a window for the tent, or a screen for the tent, and then there was also a rain fly flap. So these are two separate things that rooftop tent came with. So because you only have one flap, you really have only one option to create one rain fly, but then this opens up your window, so you don't have an option to close it up afterwards. You got to go outside, and it's not something that you can just take off while you're inside. You got to do it from the outside because it's kind of a far pull. I do keep the blocks for the Shitco awning on the tent at all times though. These blocks right here, and this is where you would put the little pole to then connect your rain fly. I've been storing the poles inside my 270 awning these days. So with the amount you pay, unfortunately it does not come with a rain fly of any sort. So that is something that you have to buy aftermarket, which is unfortunate for a camper like this. You would think it would have some of those items that come with it. I did buy these rain flies from Shitco. Super nice guy. Shout out to Mark over there. I do think the product is really good for providing the blocks and the poles to create the rain fly, but it does set you back for $125 per window. So I only got one window. If you wanted to do all three, you would be looking at about $360. So coming back into the tent, one more thing I wanted to make note of is the honeycomb inside the tent. When the sun starts hitting it, you'll notice when you're in the tent, it'll wake you up because it is pretty bright. I have seen some people wrap up the honeycomb inside the tent or on the outside just to kind of blacken it out a little bit more. We don't mind it personally because we like to wake up with the sun, but just FYI, this honeycomb is very, very bright in the morning. So next up on my list is the condensation for this tent can be pretty bad when you have all of the windows closed and it gets pretty cold outside and you got multiple bodies in here. We have woken up a couple mornings in the tent with drips in our face from how much condensation has been accumulating up here. And so there can definitely be some good condensation that occurs in the tent, especially if you don't have good airflow. We usually try and run a fan with a little bit of a window crack, so just to help combat that. Side note here though is with the diesel heater, we get zero condensation. Last time we were camping outside of Death Valley, it got down to about 30 degrees or so. It was me, Carly, and the dog, and we had the diesel running inside the tent, but all of the windows closed. Usually with all the windows closed and all of us in here, it gets really, really wet. But with the diesel heater, we actually got 0 condensation, which was amazing. And it kept the space very, very warm. So just FYI, if you are thinking about a diesel heater with the GFC, that definitely helps a ton with condensation. The next con on my list is obviously the mattress. The mattress still isn't the greatest. You know, it's only a 2-inch foam mattress on both sides. Yeah, it's not great. It doesn't matter to me too much. I sleep on my back, but for any side sleepers, there is some room for improvement here, as I've mentioned in the past. There's actually a company that makes an 1-inch foam that integrated with your sheets for the GFC, so it does add a little bit of padding. I might go and try and dabble with that this year just to test it out. So Overland Soft Goods, hit me up if you want to collab. Overlanding Soft Goods does provide that 1-inch foam for the GFC toppers. That one is pretty affordable. Last time I checked their website, I think it was only like 70 bucks, but GFC has released a enhancement to their bed called the Turbo Nap, which I was super interested in until I saw the price for this thing. They're trying to charge about $750 for a new mattress up here, and I'm like, no. I definitely didn't jump at that $750 mattress upgrade. I don't know, maybe it'll do really well, I'm not sure, but for 750 bucks, that's pretty steep for a mattress upgrade. You might as well just put 2 inflatable backpacking sleeping pads in here, and that would literally be the biggest difference. I've also heard people using the, what is that called? The Hex, it's called the Hex pad or something like that. Helix pad, sleeping pad, which I guess does really well, and I don't think costs as much as $750. So a couple cheaper options there. Overlanding Soft Goods, or just go with a backpacking sleeping pad, or even a blow up sleeping pad, and just throw it up here whenever you need it. And then you can deflate it whenever you want to put the tent down. Easy enough. And then the last one is that the doors don't fully zip at the bottom, which I mentioned already previously, but the fact that the doors don't zip at the bottom, it does cause problems with wind. The wind gets wild with these flaps open at the bottom. The wind picks up underneath, and it just creates this like it flaps all night. If you guys saw our Death Valley video, we got 50-mile-an-hour winds. That was probably the craziest wind gusts we have ever camped in, and it was so bad with the tent like this. I had never realized it before. I've known about it, but that trip it was just constantly all night, like didn't stop. So it was not a great night's sleep. But if it did zip at the bottom, I think it would help a lot, actually. So that's all the cons I really had for the tent itself. It does sound like there are a lot more cons in comparison to my pros. We do still like the setup overall. The wedge tent setup is awesome. But let's go and move down into the truck bed itself now. Into the camper. The biggest con I still have is that it is not airtight, but that's more of a truck bed issue that you can really fix on your own. So it's still not airtight. You can still get some dust and dirt and rain, wetness in there, especially if you're on a really dusty trail. You'll get some dust and stuff in there since it isn't airtight. It also does still make a decent amount of noise when driving through high winds. That's because of the overhang on the camper itself over the truck cab, but I think that's true for any camper like that where it extends over the cab of the bed. Something new I have noticed is the metal around the truck camper is getting a little bit discolored. From what I've heard, this is due to the aluminum that's being used around the camper. I'm not entirely sure, but let me show you guys what I'm talking about. It's like there's a very clear discoloration that's happening around the camper, and I think it's due to the sun exposure. With us being in Vegas, the truck is not parked inside, and so unfortunately, I have been seeing some discoloration around the truck camper itself. And I don't know if you guys will be able to see this, but if you guys can notice here, see how there's like, I don't know, it's just like not crisp anymore. You're gonna notice it very well when you get up close to it. And you can mainly see it right here. There's some discoloration that, you know, I think is just from sun. And it's very unfortunate, but I don't really know what else to do about it. Yeah, you'll notice it more over here. It looks like it's dirty, but it's not. It's very clean right now. I just wiped down the camper, but you'll notice it right here. So that is something to note if you are in hotter climates, is that if the camper is exposed to the sun, I think it will eventually start turning purple is what I've heard. So, but we'll see. Next up on my list is the locks. These locks have been getting a little bit tight where it's hard to get the key into them sometimes. The lock lubrication would probably help it, but I have also seen people adding in these covers to the lock to help keep dirt and dust and crap out of them, which I think I'm going to try and do. They're not the cheapest though. I swear a lot of GFC like aftermarket parts are not the cheapest, so I'm probably going to pay like $100 in like lock covers, but essentially it's just a plastic flap that goes to on the outside of this whole mechanism right here. That way like dirt and mud and dust and crap don't get into this area, which is probably a really good thing to put on here. Next up on my list is the hydraulics around some of the panels. They're starting to kind of stick a little bit. The hydraulics on the panels seem to be wearing down, so I try not to push the panels out as much as I used to, which is why I'm also going to be adding some additional grab handles around so that I can help it up and down, because it just, I don't know, they just feel like they're getting more and more loose as you're opening and closing the panels around the truck bed. So I opted in for this back window here on the camper, but unfortunately I really can't clean the truck window well or the back window. There's like, my hand doesn't even fit through there, and I'd need like some kind of like, I don't even know, it's just something to try and clean it. Maybe like a really skinny squeegee, but that is something to note. This back window gets super dirty. I try and like spray it down every so often just to keep as much dirt as I can off of it, but that is a con. There's just no good way to clean it. If you don't have the back window though, not a problem. You probably did the right move because I don't know why I got it. Now that I have a backup camera as well on the truck, it's just not as needed anymore. And I could have saved the money by not having this back window on the GFC, but oh well. The last con on my list are the extrusions, unfortunately. I used to really like these because I can hang stuff on them and everything and do things, but it does limit the amount of space you have to grab gear or to put gear away. In comparison, like the Super Pacifics or Alu Cab or some of the other ones with like flaps, usually this whole area is open, so it just makes it easier to grab stuff out of the bed. I'm getting some bedding back up in here. And that pretty much concludes all of the cons that I had for the tent and the camper and the GFC as a whole. Now, the golden question, would I buy this camper again? And I think with the price point that I paid, so back in 2021, I paid about $7,500 for the camper, and then I think $150 for the install. I think for that price, I still would. Yes. GFC has been raising the prices of their campers though, so that is something to make note of. I believe as of today, they're about $8,500, so about $1,000 more than what I originally paid for this camper. With that being said, there are a bunch more campers coming out on the market exactly like this, but with fixes to the items that I have mentioned here. So like with the windows and everything, definitely check out Pack Out Campers, which I'll leave a link to the video that I did with them. They're a local Las Vegas shop. The guy that runs it, Jags, shout out to Jags. Their campers right now are selling at about $9,500. So just about $1,000 more than the GFC. You can get a lot of the issues that I have with this camper fixed. The windows, forma floors, his actually has the whole bed raises up so you don't have to deal with forma floors. These campers are getting competitive. There's more and more coming onto the market, so do your research. You know, if you do like this type of setup, there are a ton of companies that are making truck campers like this within this, you know, $8,000 to $10,000 price range that fit on mid-sized trucks like my Nissan Frontier. And that is probably one of the biggest pros, is that of those campers, not a lot of them had an option for the Nissan Frontier, and GFC was the quickest one to respond to me saying that they would create a Nissan Frontier version of the GFC, which is great. Usually a lot of these campers are only available for like Tacomas, you know, or like some of these other mid-sized trucks like the Rangers and stuff. So that's definitely a downside of having a truck that isn't very mainstream. My Frontier is a 2012 as well, which is a little bit different. I've seen a lot more campers come out for the Nissan Frontiers for the brand new ones. So that doesn't really help me though. I do still think the GFC is the cheapest option for a camper or wedge tent configuration like this, where there is pass-through access between the tent and the truck bed. The GFC is also very, very battle tested. It holds up in like Baja type conditions. So if you're doing some crazy off-roading, it definitely will hold up there. So it really depends on, you know, how you want to camp and what type of system that you want to utilize. So it all comes down to how you personally like to camp. I like the flexibility of the GFC, access to the truck bed, being able to hang out in the bed, easy tent setup. I like to keep our setup pretty minimal, but also have the ability to pack stuff when we need it for certain trips. You know, if we do need to pack a little bit more gear, we have the room to do so. So for the price I paid for this unit, and that it was also compatible with the Frontier, I don't regret the purchase. I really don't. I'm probably going to have the GFC for many more years to come. I'm going to keep this exact same setup unless another vendor reaches out and they want to do some type of partnership. I'm gonna pretty much keep the GFC for the foreseeable future. And like I mentioned, GFC is one of the few camper companies that have something for these older Frontiers, which is great in my book because there's not a lot out there, unfortunately. The Frontiers are not like the Tacos. Everybody and their mom is making stuff for the Tacomas. So overall, we still love camping with this setup and we love going on adventures with it. I'm still very happy with the purchase. I'm moving closer to getting a build out eventually in the truck for the GFC as well to make it more comfortable on longer term road trips. Other than that, that's pretty much all I have for you guys. If you guys have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. Comment down below if you would purchase the GFC or if there are alternatives that you might be considering. Pack Out Campers is one of them. Super Pacific is another one that I've heard a ton about. Harker Outdoors has one like that. There's a couple tent companies coming out with like hard-sided, all four corners popping up. But again, my niche is the mid-size truck type of configuration. So if you do know of other camper companies that can tailor, that have an option for mid-sized trucks, you know, less weight, fits on a 5-foot bed, I'd be totally interested to see what you guys, what else is out there. I will leave links to all of the videos that I've referenced down in the description as well, in case you guys want to check those out. I appreciate all the support on the channel. I try to reply to every single one of the comments, so feel free to leave a comment. I'll talk to you guys down there. And if you guys do end up purchasing a GFC does have a referral program now. My unit is 1674. Be sure to mention my name and that unit number 1674 at your purchase when you get it installed. And I think there's going to be some kind of like kickback referral system where they'll give you and me some, I think, credits for some GFC accessories. So, you know, be cool to see. But thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks.